Well, hey there, gang. I didn't think I was going to get a video out this week at all, for a couple of reasons. The most pressing being that we had a great big windstorm, a massive tree branch came down, and it knocked out the power to the whole street. And it took them just about 24 hours to get it back on. So that was a fun interval involving melted ice cream. This is also supposed to be my vacation. It doesn't matter how long in advance I schedule a day off. Something almost always comes up. The other day I painted the front porch. Today I'm going to sand and polish some lacquer. Yes, folks, this is the actual polishing video. This is Victoria Day weekend here in Canada, which is a federal holiday in which we celebrate the birthday of Queen Victoria, of all people. We've been doing it since the 1840s, and we ain't about to stop now. It falls on the Monday prior to May 25th every year. It's colloquially referred to as May 24, which is also slang for a 24-pack of beer. You can see where this goes. So I'm just going to do a quick Q&A here. I picked a couple of questions off the top of the pile that happen to be related to each other. This is an Epiphone Les Paul with a headstock break that was repaired by someone else, and though the glue-up seems okay, it was finished with a paintbrush, and there was a distinctive brushy texture. In fine art painting terms, we'd call that impasto. Some happy little brush marks. You can put them anywhere you want to in your world. It's generally thought of as a disagreeable thing for electric guitars. People want them smooth for some reason. So I've sanded the paint, filled in some of the voids, color matched it as best I can, sprayed on several coats of lacquer, and now I'm going to sand and buff it. I posted a picture of the tree damage over on Instagram, and people were urging me to run over there as soon as possible and get myself a chunk for use in a project in a video. It had a live wire wrapped around it at the time, so I dismissed their pleas. But also, the wood we use for guitar making has to be very carefully selected. And the last thing you would want to do is to use timber from a limb. Think of it this way. Imagine wrapping your arm up with about 120 pounds worth of weight and sticking it straight out from your body and leaving it like that forever. That's what's going on with a tree. It's got something called reaction wood, which is kind of analogous to the flexor and extensor muscles we find in humans. They sort of push and pull to keep your limbs where you want them to be. If you cut a straight, square board from that wood, you'll be amazed what it does as it dries, this reaction wood from the tree. It bends in funny ways. Now, there are some woodcrafts that take advantage of that, traditional boat building being one, but it's no good for the dimensions we use in guitar making. So the road crew finally showed up near midnight to cut up this beast of a branch, and I was parked by my bedroom window, keeping cool, and I could smell that fresh cut smell. There are all kinds of smell components in fresh cut wood. There's this green, sappy aroma, but there's something else there too. It's another kind of fragrance that it remains even when you break into wood that's been well seasoned. It's very mysterious, and it brings to mind a tweet I read a few months back. I'll see if I can link to it and put it in the video description. The account was Mi'kmaq News. I'll link to it. The Mi'kmaq are an indigenous people from the Northeast. They lived on territory that, after it was taken from them, was renamed Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, parts of Quebec, and Maine. Anyway, the author of this tweet suggests that trees smell like stars. They absorb not only the sun's rays, but also starlight. Night after night, they're standing out there in the darkness, and they store this inside them. When you cut into a tree, you get a breath of this stuff that has traveled millions of years to get to Earth and wind up there. And the fragrance is something unfathomably old. I think that's a great thought, and it's definitely true. If you're into wood, you know what I'm talking about. Incidentally, the word for sawyer in Mi'kmaq culture, a person who saws wood and would know about this stuff, is Nujagidiget. That's the person who releases the starlight. The next question comes from Christopher Beaver. I'm not kidding. He asks why oak isn't popular in guitar building, as it seems to have the ideal qualities we look for, because it's hard and it bends well. The answer is, in fact, during the parlor guitar era, say the 1880s to about 1920, there were quite a few made from oak back then, and some guitars were even faux finished to look like they were made from quarter-sawn white oak. This is a wood that's associated with the arts and crafts or craftsman-style furniture of that period. They had special stamps that would put on the grain lines for them. I think the reason it wasn't ever put to more use after that is a kind of prejudice. Oak is seen as a furniture wood. It's not a guitar wood, silly. It works fine, sounds great. The pores are a little bit big, and if you wanted to do a gloss finish, they'd need to be filled a number of times. But if you've got some good air-dried quarter sawn oak, jump right in. I'm sure you'll be very happy with it. Dendrochronology. You guys know about this? It's a technique used in archaeology and associated disciplines to precisely date objects made from wood based on the sequence of their growth rings, how wide they are related to each other. It's just like a barcode. And if you document enough samples from an area, you can figure it out to the year. It's like, oh, that's 1404, obviously. It's that precise. So trees not only preserve a kind of galactic history in starlight, they physically write down a terrestrial account of our world's climate inside their bodies. It's pretty wild stuff. A viewer noted the beautiful wood on the back of the headstock on the La Croix guitar last week. They said it didn't look like any walnut they'd ever seen. I mentioned that this was Walnut Burl, and someone else asked why we don't make entire guitars out of this stuff because it's pretty good looking. And the reason is, again, it's kind of unpredictable. Burl is a protuberance formed from bud eyes. You might call it a tumor, but it's not like a pathology. It seems to have some genetic origins. Some trees will have a great big bump on one side of the trunk. You may have seen them. Others will have a more complex situation. Here's one of my favorite local trees. This is a willow that grows near the lakeshore. It spreads its ancient arms out over the water, collecting both sun and stars. It's very old, and it's entirely burled. Grain in a burl runs every which way, and for our purposes in an acoustic instrument, we usually like orderly, straight grain. Usually, because the sound waves move fastest and easiest if we give them a straight line to run through and no obstacles. So burl is usually reserved for veneering purposes and decorative elements. Not that old willow. That tree should be left standing exactly where it is, because you know something bad is going to happen if you cut that thing down. You'll be unleashing forces. Okay, that was the polishing video, and a short excursion into trees. Next week, barring weather-related calamity, I'll have something more in line with what we usually explore. Have yourself a good week, and we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.